Can you retire on $750,000? This is the second video in our Can You Retire series. You can check out the first one via the link above and make sure to subscribe so you can catch our future videos in this series. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so we have Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, and same thing as last time. We'll take a look at their financial picture and then make some assumptions as far as what to expect in their retirement. And then we'll take a look at 3 different scenarios that they can use to pay themselves in retirement. So let's get into it. So we have Mr. Wilson, who's 67 and retired, and Mrs. Wilson, who is 68 and also retired. Mr. Wilson has $200,000 in his RIF, along with $100,000 in his tax-free savings account. And Mrs. Wilson has $350 in her RIF, along with $100,000 in her TFSA as well. Together, they jointly own their home, valued at $450,000, and they have no debt. So their retirement savings are $750,000, and when we include their house as well, their net worth is $1.2 million. So now we need to make some assumptions with these financial figures. So the first one being is their life expectancy. So I like to use this tool online. It's from Sun Life. If you're interested in using it yourself, we've included the link in the description down below. But this is a tool that we can use to figure out how long someone is expected to live. So using Mr. Wilson as an example, he's currently 67, 6 foot, 165 pounds, has never smoked, drinks occasionally, is moderately active, has a moderately healthy diet, and is very low stress. So based on this information, and according to Sun Life, Mr. Wilson has a life expectancy of age 86. Now, Mrs. Wilson, on the other hand, we did the same thing, and she has a life expectancy up to age 89. So just to be safe, we'll assume a life expectancy at 90 for both of them. Now, inflation, as we know, the price of things tends to go up over time. So going back from 1922 to 2021, we'll see in blue the different inflation rates that we had over the years. And then the green line indicates the average that we've seen throughout. So going back to 1922, the average inflation rate has been 2.69%. Again, that's not including 2022, which I expect to be around this range here. So just to be on the safe side of things, let's just assume that inflation moving forward is at 4%. Let's also assume that their home is going to grow at a rate of 3% and their retirement savings, so their investments are going to grow at a rate of 5%. Now, we also have their CPP, and this is just for your information's sake. So in 2022, had you taken your CPP at 65, the most that you could have received is just under $1,254 per month. And on average, a Canadian taking their CPP at 65 will receive just under $738 per month. Now, in our scenario, Mr. Wilson started a CPP at 65, and he's currently receiving $1,050 per month. And Mrs. Wilson is getting just over $1,100 per month. They're also both receiving their old age security, so they're getting $686 a month each. All right, so let's take a look at our first scenario. So we're going to use Mr. Wilson's ages here just because he's a year younger. So from 67 to age 90. And what we like to do in this first scenario is just see what could they spend from right now until age 90. Just straight line, how much could they put towards their expenses? So in this case, it's just over $5,600 that they could spend per month. Again, in reality, we have this inflated. This is just using today's dollars. So from 67 to 90, they could spend this amount. At that point, they wouldn't have anything remaining, and they would have their $920,000 home. So again, their home today is worth $450,000 with a 3% increase over the years. That's going to be worth $920,000 down the road. Now, scenario 2, which is what most people will actually see in their spending in retirement, is they might start their retirement with more expenditures. So we'll call this the go-go years of retirement. So $7,200 per month. We have them spending that until Mr. Wilson is 74. And then let's decrease that to $5,400 from 74 to 84. And then from 84 to 90, let's go down to $4,000 per month. And again, same idea. They'll have their house remaining at age 90. again, valued at $920,000. And that's the money that they can use to give to their kids if they so choose. So two different approaches. So scenario one is just being able to spend the same amount throughout retirement, whereas scenario two is using a more laddered approach. So spending more money up front, while most people are still healthy and young enough to travel and do those types of things. So let's dig into scenario 2 a bit more into the weeds here. So this is their cash flow statement in their first year of retirement. So we're going to use 2023. So they're both going to be receiving CPP and OAS. So combined, that's going to pay them just over $42,000. And then we have some liquidations of their investments. So we see some money coming from Mrs. Wilson's RIF and TFSA, and then same idea for Mr. Wilson's TFSA and RIF as well. So together, they're taking about $49,000 gross from their investments. So their total cash flow for the year is $92,000. Now their retirement expenses, again, in those go-go years, $7,200 a month, which gives us $86,400 for the year. And some of the taxes that they'll have to pay along the way on the CPP, OAS, and on the RIF withdrawals. So we see their inflows matches their outflows in that first year of retirement. So another thing we like to look at is their estate analysis. So what would happen if they both passed away today? So as far as registered assets, they have their RIFs and TFSA. So at the end of 2023, because we have made some withdrawals, it's a little bit less than 750,000. We're now at 737,000. The house was originally worth 450 up to 463 because we factored in some inflation, and their net worth is still around that $1.2 million. Now, once you pass away, you get a benefit from the CPP, $2,500 each. So that's $5,000. So their total estates before taxes and expenses, again, just over $1.2 million. And then they have to pay a tax bill of $255,000. So that tax bill is mainly arising from the RIFs that they have. So what ends up happening here is when they pass away, all the money in the RIF gets taxable in 1 year, which puts them in a very high tax bracket. So they end up paying quite a bit of tax. So if we look at their estate analysis, so how much they can expect to have at the end of the day over the next few years. So again, today, $950,000. 2028, so when Mr. Wilson is 772, $909,000 that would go to their kids. 2035, $913,000. 2041, $927,000. And by 2046, again, all they have is their house that's left. So $920,000 will go to their kids. Now let's look at an alternative withdrawal strategy. So this is the scenario that we looked at again with the RIF withdrawals and the TFSA withdrawals. Now let's look at a second scenario. So again, CPP, OAS, same idea. But in this case, we're not making any withdrawals from their TFSA. We're leaving that money to grow. And we're just going to make all of their withdrawals from their RIF accounts. So in this case, they're taking out $61,000 from their RIFs. Total cash inflow with the CPP and OAS is at $104,000. Same expenses. Tax bill is a little bit higher because we're making more withdrawals from the RIF. And again, cash flow is matching the inflow there. So what this does is it reduces that potential huge tax bill that they're facing if they're both going to pass away. So again, this is the estate analysis that we just looked at. If they take the minimums from their RIF and then top up from the TFSA. But in this second scenario where we just pull as much as we can from the RIF until it's depleted and then start using the TFSA, let's take a look at how that affects their estate. So today, no difference. By 2028, their estate would be $949,000. So it's actually $40,000 to the good by using this strategy. By 2035, there's $66,000 to the good. By 2041, $3,000 to the good. And by 2046, same idea. All they have is the house remaining. So there's no real benefit if they live that long. So the benefit of this strategy, if something does happen to both of them along the way, there should be a bit more money there for their estate because they drew down those taxable RIFs a little bit sooner than leaving them until the last year and potentially facing a very high tax bill. So now the last scenario we'll look at is what if they are open to selling their home and spending that money down? So let's say they don't want to leave any money to their kids because they're doing okay in their jobs and they're well off. So how much could they spend and end up with nothing? So we start with $8,500 per month up until age 76. At that point, they'd be out of money and be forced to sell their home, which would drop down their expenses to $6,000 up until age 90. At that point, again, they have $0 left because they've sold their home already. So Do keep in mind, though, if they do sell their home, they'll need somewhere to live. So part of this $6,000 per month will have to go towards rent. So a few different scenarios, a few different ways of doing it. So as far as can you retire on $750,000? Well, that's really up to you. And if these numbers work in your favor and you feel like you can do the things that you want to do, then I would say yes. If these numbers aren't high enough, then I would say no. So again, the important thing is that we made a lot of assumptions here. If any of these assumptions are a little bit different for your scenario, it's going to make a huge impact. So if you feel your investment growth is only going to be 3%, or if you feel it's going to be 7%, it's going to have a huge impact on how the picture looks for you. So if you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe and make sure that you check out the next video in the series. Until next time, take care.